Sean Maloney. Tutto bene.
This is the 8-9 combo. I'm Brett McKay. This is Harry Jones. And the Rugby Championship is done for 2024. South Africa claiming their first title, mate, since 2019. Much a relief it must be for you.
How's it, Brett? That's our first real title, too, because it was a full one with six games and 6 rounds and everyone, no excuses. I'm not ready for it to end. I kind of want to hold on to some moments, and I feel bad. I picked the team of the tournament for the Roar, and I only had one Wallaby in the 23. And I just want to say that I still love Harry Wilson, and he was my player 24. And I want to go back to that time when you got me into a press conference, and I always imagined it was like this hushed assemblage, and you said, may it please the court, may I approach the bench? And you would like ask the question, hello, I'm Harold Jones from 8-9 Combo. And actually, you don't do anything like that.
And Joe Schmidt laughed.
He was an annoying guy. He was like in the middle of the pack, and he would just say one-word questions. Like he had no preparation. He was like, scrum. And then Joe Schmidt would talk, line out. I'm like, you fucker. What? Like, I have an actual question, scripted. I was next to your friend, Steve Menthol, the Lenthal, and he was like, take a picture of my T-shirt. I'm like, don't distract me. I'm about to do my greatest moment here. I want to ask Harry a question about, hey, of all the tackles that you've made, what was your favorite one? One of those.
And he gave you the.
It was a half laugh, and
half laugh.
Yeah, and it turned out to be such a wonderful moment, and I just want to thank you. I'm not sure I actually thanked you on air. Thank you for getting me a written press placard, which allowed me to walk anywhere into the bowels of Accor Stadium. It was bizarre. I just kind of wander around and talk to people. Hey, how's it going, mate?
And Rugby Australia have been on my case ever since, saying, did we really let him walk everywhere? Anyway.
Was this the greatest rugby championship ever? I mean, just because it's such a pretentious name anyway. The Rugby Championship.
The Rugby Championship. Maybe. Who knows? It's episode 34 of the 8-9 Combo Rugby podcast, and we've been brought to you throughout the Rugby Championship by Chasing the Sun 2, the outstanding 5-part all-access series documenting the Springboks' memorable 2023 Rugby World Cup journey. And it is available now to watch on RugbyPass TV worldwide. Just head to rugbypass.tv and sign up for free. Let's get into the rugby week, mate. Cheers and jeers from the weekend. And I have a cheers for you, and I think you'll appreciate this. My cheers is to dominant tackles. And a good dominant tackle, as you well know from when we met on the streets of North Sydney, can stop attackers in their tracks. It can send a message to anyone willing that if you come this way, you too could suffer the fate as the same poor soul who tried his luck post-match in Mbombela. When a ground invader had to be shipped off on a medicab, you know that is a far more effective deterrent than any fine can be. That man was leveled.
He was.
He was leveled.
I mean, I hope there's going to have to be HIA box for the
He was gone.
Now. So when I was a young man, we always invaded the pitch. It was de rigueur.
It was what was done.
And no one really cared. And no one was like, just rooting you on the spot. I'm not sure. We need to actually have a little tackle school for these security guards and talk about like bringing your tacklee safely to ground, because that guy's head whooped, man.
It was perfect. Like it's an illegal tackle in the AFL. Got him from behind, head slammed into the ground. But
there was a girl in Nelspruit, and let me tell you, if you live in Nelspruit and you're a girl, you got to learn to run really fast. But she was untackleable. Like, she was Ben Smith out there. I mean, the good Ben Smith, not the stupid trolling Ben Smith who needs to get a life. But like the good Ben Smith, he was always looked like you couldn't tackle him. This girl was like, and she actually slipped the guy who ended up tackling the guy. And I think she made him so upset that's why he was so vuss, and then he killed the other guy. Because no one could tackle that girl, the blonde girl. Someone find that girl and sign her up for a lady box.
Hang on, what are we talking about? This was one of the ground invaders.
The whole pitch, man, was invaded by like 17 people. They're all running pell-mell. And that's why I think the security guard just got the one slow guy. And he just said, I'm going to just completely wax you, man.
It's the Darwin theory. It's the Darwin theory, isn't it? Cheers me, mate. Cheers me.
Oh, cheers. Cheers to any.
Remember how we've been starting each episode with cheers and jeers for 34 episodes so far?
Prego, arrivederci, my good man. The people in Buckland that think you have to pick who is the starter and who is the. If there's one thing you've learned from Rassie Wood is like there is no starter, there is no depth chart. It's all just like it's like what are those things? Depth charges. When they throw them out into the submarines.
Yeah.
If you think you own the jersey in Buckland, I mean, there might be a couple of guys, Peter Stiff, the toy, but that's a myth. But like in general, so who is the field general? Is it Marty Lubbock? Oh, see, he outplayed Andre Pollard. Listen, man, it's a 1-2 punch. It's a 1-2-3 punch. Everyone in the world would like to have a Sasha, Mani, Andre problem. Australia, hello. Could we have some 10s that, gave each other some competition? So my jeer is for the people who think in 1987 terms and think there's got to be an incumbent starter and then a reserve who is only on when you're tired. I mean, it's a 23-man game, which means a 28-man game, which means it's a 50-man game. And you've got to find all kinds of depth.
Yeah. No, that's a good shout. That's a good shout. With the Springboks wrapping up a dominant rugby championship title on the weekend, we've again got the perfect guest to go through it all, and he joins us right after this. Right after this, in fact. My podcast co-host tried to construct a narrative of the Rugby Championship being up for grabs going into last weekend, but the Boks 48-7 thumping of Argentina in Mbombela only confirmed what was always likely, that this South African team may be the best ever to pull on the famous Springbok jersey. And for that reason, it is the perfect time to welcome back and hand out an 8-9 debut for Planet Rugby writer, part of the wonderful Rugby Bits podcast crew as well, Jared Wright. Hello, mate. Welcome back. How are you?
How's it, guys? How's it? Great, thanks, and you. It's always nice to chat some rugby after a title win, Harry.
Yes, we've been around when it's been not so nice.
I figured this week was just going to be a Springboks love fest, so I got in early.
Yeah,
I'm surprised, Harry, you're not in green.
That's beautiful, man. Really, I gave you the last Springbok jersey off my back. I just walked around naked around Sydney. I gave my jersey to my co-host. Hey, Jared, man. So tell me, set the scene. How were you watching that? Were you dancing on the couch like Ringo? Were you, throwing things? What was your game routine? How do you watch a game?
Most of the time I'm working the game, Harry. So it was a lot more relaxed than that. Not your brace of celebrations that you got during the Harlequins, during our visit to Harlequins when we watched the Sharks. So yeah,
I was very sad for the people around us at that game because I think, basically there was a guy named Gus in between us and he got scrummed, because Jared and I were scrumming him to bits.
Yeah, and we had the big wigs from Claremont sitting right next to us. I don't think they quite enjoyed our celebrations as much.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I've been around the world recently watching how people watch rugby, and there's almost
just this month.
And besides maybe Fiji and maybe some feral parts of Ireland, I don't know if any group right now of fans is as animated, out of their mind as South African fans. Are you feeling that too? Just that this whole thing just took up several notches, even beyond World Cup.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do what happened in 2020 when there was no book games right after the World Cup. And I think going back to back, the team being so successful, everyone's just there's a big hype around the Springboks with everything. So, yeah, I think it has gone up a couple of notches, and it's great to see. I mean, the anthems this year in South Africa have been mind-blowing. I feel like I've taught him in the same tweets every week. Glorious anthem, brilliant anthem.
It feels from someone looking in from the outside, it feels like Ellis Park tried to set the standard, and then Durban said, well, we can do better than that. And Cape Town said, whoa, no, we can do the best one. And then even Mbombela Stadium on the weekend went pretty bloody hard. And it feels like there's a real game of anthem brinkmanship going on at the moment.
Well, the wrap around Nelspruit to Mbombela is that there's nothing to do in the town as much, and people get there really early. So like you have the late arrivals in Ellis Park in Cape Town. They're still on the Joel. They're still like finding their way. They're in the parking lot doing all kinds of weird shit. But like in Nelspruit, it's like they get in so early and they're so jacked up. I mean, you can bring whatever you want to that stadium too. So you're like continuing to do at your seat. And so by the time anthems come, everyone is just in a mood. And so Brett, I think actually they won. I think we can give them the title of the loudest per capita. I would say
all it
needed
was a flyover.
No, they had the man doing on the tightrope. He was on the tightrope before the game.
Yeah, I was looking at that thinking, is he suspended? Like, is he in place of the spider cam?
There's all kinds of things happening in South African stadiums right now, Brett. It's like
how did he get
swimming
there?
pools, and there's people throwing spears, and there's like people going on rickshaw rides. There's people just tackling each other.
Oh my goodness!
And then they did that whole lion image or whatever with all the dancers. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And then they go and hand the Zulu warrior fire before he runs on. Like, he's intimidating enough. Like, come on.
How's that guy not playing rugby somewhere? I mean,
he's enormous, man.
I love the idea that South African rugby have got a dedicated Zulu warrior that they keep in a very comfortable cupboard, and they pull him out 4 times a year and go, "Here you are, man."
Yeah, but you only see him shirtless and all that, and then you saw him actually later on talking to Sia, and he was wearing jeans. I don't know where he buys his jeans, and like a shirt, and like it looked preposterously large. Like he was dwarfing Sia. Like, man, get some boots on, play this game. Jared, maybe you should coach him up. You know, you told me that you did coach with some of the players, and one guy in particular, and that's actually where I want to go since we're the 8-9 combo. You worked with Grant Williams, and what occurs to me right now is about 7 or 8 years ago when we talked about Springbok rugby, one of the biggest holes we had in the depth chart was at scrum off and at 9, and it was like, why don't we have any 9s?
I think you've solved those problems this year.
And literally this year, you couldn't arrange them from 1st to 4th. I don't think so, right? I mean, if you had to, it's just horses for courses. Talk to me about the 9s in South Africa and how Rassie is using them, not just because of the 7-1 sometimes makes them play different positions, but like how is he actually working with these 9s, and is it Tony Brown, or who do you think is working with these guys?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with Tony, but I think the last selection call always comes down to Rassie. So, like, I think we saw Grant on the bench a lot at the start of the international season because he gave that pace and gave that whip like right at the end of matches. And then you've got like the guys that had a bit more control, if I can say that, with Kobus and Faf, like the older, calmer heads. And and then you get Jaden right at the end that sort of brought it all together. And I think his game this past weekend against Argentina was probably the best performance we got out of a 9 this year. And I love the way Grant plays as well. And he finally got his start against New Zealand and took it with both hands. So yeah, it's a very spoiled position. And I think you pretty much can go horses for courses. If you need somebody just to pulse it up in the air when we're playing in the Northern Hemisphere, you get Faf de Klerk and Kobus Reinach to do that. And then when everyone's a bit tired, you throw on Grant, or you throw on Morne van der Berg, who didn't get too many opportunities, but he's also pretty much like a Kobus and a Grant's quick, nuggety, called a little bit of a Faf light in South Africa. So.
I'm just picturing South African scrum halves updating their LinkedIn page to be positioned scrum half France and the UK. I'm the South African Springbok scrum half in Cape Town.
Right. Yeah. With the advent of the different kind of bench compositions, though, it is interesting, because Grant's got that sort of special weapon because he can play a wing and look entirely comfortable. It's not just he's a 9 playing wing for a while. So, is it part of it, before they do the selections, they got to start out with the principle of, what does our bench look like? And so more and more, you almost start with the end. You almost so who's going to be on the pitch in the final 25? And then we work forward from there, or backward from there.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like, if you go in with the 6-2, then you sort of want a Faf that could play 9 and 10, or you have Grant that can play 14 and 9. So yeah, I think versatility in international rugby has just like the value of it has just shot up, and I'd like to say it's the Springboks leading it, but I think a lot of teams have realized how important it can be. And like you go back to the 2015 All Blacks and they had Victor Vito, they would come on and they would have Reed shifting into the second row kind of thing, so they could get an extra back row onto the field. So it's been going on for quite a while. I think Rassie's just turned it up a couple of notches, and where Harry, you'll know, like even more so with someone like Pat Lambie, Francois Steyn, it was always like, what's their best position? Where do we play them? Rassie's like, no, like
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Like he's a great player, and we can just fit him in somewhere.
Yeah.
Which makes sense though, because of the way the shape of the game has gone with 200 rocks instead of 40 scrums. Is it doesn't really matter the number. I think Razor was given this question as well, and Razor said that he said pay too much attention about Wallace Hititi being at 6 and Artie at 8. The teams that are doing well can kind of handle cards. They can handle injuries, and I think you look at Durban when we lost to Ireland. That was one of the problems, is an early injury to Willie, and then the whole thing just, Franco, and the whole thing just kind of came unwound. And so you could play that game back and you can have any theme you want. But the real theme for Rassie and those guys probably is resilience, handling, adaptation, because something's going to happen. Cards, as Brett has well documented, are way more frequent nowadays.
No, 100%. And like, I think you saw it in the game in Santiago where we got that yellow card to Kurtley Orense, and then Kobus Ranach was shifting to wing. And although he's like defended in wing and played wing, like it just, because he hasn't racked up as many minutes there, it just came apart.
He looked like a scrum half playing wing, mate.
Yeah. Exactly that.
Yeah. So we haven't really had a chance, Harry, to go through the win on the weekend. 48-7 suggests a pretty dominant score line, and when it was 27-7 at half time, it was already a pretty dominant score line. So was this one of these cases of the Boks knowing what they had to do and it just fell into place very early for them, or was it maybe one step too far for Argentina, who potentially played their final the week before?
Well, there's several ways to look at this, I think, and Jared will probably supply a few more, and he has some excellent writing on how this championship went. But I looked at tackles the round before, and I just sort of plotted out on round 5 who made the most tackles. Gajo 14, Montoya 13, Sclavi 15, Rubiola 11, Oviedo 14. So many high tackle counts in the pack, and so when they came up against a really fresh pack, only one player had gone double digits in tackles, Jasper Visa, the week before. So you were facing, fired up Mbanambi, Kulisi, Peter Steff, so there was a mismatch right there.
Yeah.
And the second thing is there was a lot of really young players in Argentina that hadn't faced what I call the first knockout match of 2024. Like, it was proper, this is it, this is a final, and that's different sauce. And then my final thing would be, I felt like there's more balance in this match than there was in some of the matches of the Boks. The Boks had been sort of toe-to-toe for 50 minutes, then sort of run away with you for the next 20 minutes. And then that final 10, no one scores. Like, it's just shut you down, and Quacha's going everywhere, and Elrich Lowe smacking you. And so it's just kind of nothing, you just ground down to a halt. This match was 27 under the Jaden Mani regime, and then Andre and Kubas come on, and they scored 21. And so it's actually really interesting how they never stopped scoring. It just kind of, like, Jared, how did you see it? It was just kind of, to me, one of the most balanced scoring outputs. A little lull in the middle, actually, kind of got stuck at 27-7, but then Andre comes on and it's a different sauce.
Yeah, I think you highlighted a few big things there. Like, I think taking on a Springbok forward pack 1 week is one thing, but then backing it up and being able to make any of those changes. Like, I think the pressure the Springboks were able to put Los Pumas under in the scrums in Mbombela was just enormous.
It was
enormous.
Just from that first one. It's enormous, like, from the outset, wasn't it?
Yeah, and once you, like, you've talked about all those tackles that they made last week, and then you put in Flats miles under that as well, and then your first scrum you're getting put into reverse like that. Your legs turn into lead after 15 minutes, and then guys are folding slower. They're getting around the ruck slower. So, yeah, I think Argentina have one front row and there's not much depth underneath it. Like that's one thing that Conspomi has to do. And when the Boks are getting that front row dominance like that, the machine just starts going and going and going. And like you say, there was that lull like early in the second half, and then once they replaced the front row again, then that lull just turned into they just went from second gear into third to fourth, and you carry on like that. But yeah, it was like it was almost a perfect storm. Like losing someone like Marcus Kramer for Argentina is just, I think he's probably their most important forward, and losing him for the second test match, like they just couldn't replicate that kind of power in the pack.
It was curious, Harry, that they played musical chairs in the back row again. You know, Gonzalez went to 6. Matera started off the bench. I don't know. It just sort of
Argentina would say the Pumas would say that they've been doing that now for 2 or 3 years under Checa as well.
That's true.
And so it worked for them. I think that's fair, but I think when you get into quarterfinal, semifinal, final, which is what this felt like, kind of. And it was one stage too many for them. I think maybe you don't. Maybe you stick, because I think there's something about when the pressure is amped up that much, and you got a Zulu warrior with a spear like 2 inches from your face. You kind of need Marcus Kramer to look across at Pablo Matera, and then you whatever you have, your weird gang signs you can pass between each other. It was a proper battle, and then the battle was over too quickly, and they couldn't find their way back. When you're bringing on props with 4 caps and 1 cap, Jared, for the second line, these tournaments are won. You just look at the World Cup. New Zealand and Springboks could find some sort of fake ceiling and then bust through it and get a new ceiling. Unlike what Johnny Sexton says in his book. No, you found your first fake ceiling, and then we had the second floor to go to. And the Pumas just effed around and found out is like you can have that moment, and then we can take you a little bit deeper. And this is about depth. This is about having props coming on that have been tested and tried. Even Steenekamp with 7 caps is different gravy than bringing on Delgado.
Yeah, look good. What was it? Do you think there was a concerted effort? Do you think Rassie wanted to finish this tournament and say, let's make sure that there is no question about who is the top dog in the Southern Hemisphere? And no, I don't think that was really in question, but let's really lay down a statement here that, resonates up north as well.
I think there was elements to that, but I think the more of the emotional driver would have been to win it on home soil in front of the fans, and doing it for Etzebeth on his big occasion.
The power of the milestone.
Yeah, like Rassie constantly talks. You mentioned chasing the sun, but he constantly talks about the emotional drivers and how he cheese up the team, and like he probably wouldn't have had to say very much in the build up to the week, but that would have been the things, doing it for Irvin, doing it for the South African fans, and so I think it was getting those top players back, those 6 like frontline players back. And then just having the emotional drive of, okay, let's get the title. This is the one that we want. Doing it in front of the South African fans. So I think it just all came together in that way.
Yeah, it might have been one of those weeks, Harry, where there probably wasn't much coaching actually happen. It was just all driven by the players. It
was highly emotional, and you could tell it across so many different ways. I had a couple of friends that were in that captain's run, and they were showing me some videos that you don't just release. And people walking around and talking to each other, like for real, like conversations like you only have with a teammate that you've been around since you're under 18s, under 20s, and there's some bonds there, like a guy like Frans Malherbe and Eben Etzebeth playing on the same Craven Week team, and that goes way back, right? There's just a few words that can go here and there. The friendship between Sia Kolisi and Eben Etzebeth is well documented, but I mean, it's a real thing, Jared. Like, it drives this team. It's one of the emotional planks upon which it's built. You can see it not even just in the famous photo videos and stuff, but Sia and Eben love each other. And the speech that he gave, I don't know, Brett, if that was part of the coverage, where you had it. But there's a really
I caught a few social clips of it. I didn't see the whole thing. No.
deep, good words spoken,
Yeah.
even just listening. And I mean, milestone games are really a trap, right? But you had Malcolm Marks going for one of his, and you had Ibn, and Jared, have you ever seen a guy like Ibn Etzebeth carry a load, expected, almost taken for granted, and just not allowed to have a bad game? And now, even a moderate game is considered a bad game. It's going to be 8 out of 10 for it to be, okay. And it doesn't seem like it's phased him. I mean, have you seen? I've never seen a guy be able to do that year in, year out, almost like Richie McCaw type of guy.
Yeah, I think it was John Smith that pretty much likened him to Richie McCaw in that sense, and like it's just insane for a player to play in a position where South Africa is traditionally strong and has immense depth, and to just dominate the jersey. I think he's played like 80% of the Springbok games since his debut. Like, it's just it's just madness. Like, it's in Australian sense, it's like you're not like a number 7 like Hooper just dominating that jersey, despite Liam Gill, David Pocock, all those players underneath him. And yeah, I'm tempted to say that. Well, since I've been watching rugby, Ibn Etzebeth is the greatest Springbok player that's ever produced. And yeah, I think a lot of older guys will call up guys like Dani Gerber and that kind of thing. But to play in the position that he has, at the level that he has, and produce consistently like that is just insane.
And Harry, I don't, just listening to you guys talk about that, I don't think I've ever seen Ibn Etzebeth wear anything other than 4 or 19. Like, Peter Steph-Toita's played all around the back row. Even Dwayne Vermeulen's gone between 6 and 8. Guys move around. I don't think I've ever seen Etzebeth play anything other than number 4 lock.
Well, it's funny. So at his French club, he actually did play a flank for a while. He played one of those big 6s. He's plenty mobile. I mean, he played center at schools, I think up until 11th grade. And you can see that when he's in space, he has nimble feet and all that. But I think in Bokland, he's always been perceived as an enforcer lock in the inheritor. And there's some positions in South Africa that act like that, almost like I am now bequeathing you the role of enforcer lock. And so it was a Bakkies to Ibn transfer, right? And it's not like we know who that successor.
But Bakkies was a big number 5.
No, he played 4 in the system. You would call it. I think you would call it 5 in Australia because you guys all these number schemes. But anyway, he's
likes to just follow the rest of the world. That'd be fine.
He's never called the lineouts. He's always been the enforcer. He's always been a ruck hitter. But what's interesting about him, and I think great players in the game, and don't worry, guys, I'm not using that goat word thing, but great players reinvent themselves several times. You look at a guy who doesn't have a jump shot, and then in their career they go, now I can't go to the rim, so I'm going to do a jump shot. Ibn has learned how to kick chase in a way that I don't know of any tight forward doing so. I mean, he actually has he has pathways to the ball that young locks are following. He was always comfortable in the pods. He's always had good hands. And he's developed, some tricks around the ruck. He actually knows when the ball is out before anyone else does, maybe before the ref does, which is a problem. But no, he's like Brett, you're right. He's been put into this number 4 jersey and just said, that's yours. Keep it as a custodian for the next guy. And then he's just like, but I just want to have it forever.
And look, it's working so far, isn't it? Like, it's just
there's not really a successor. Jared, who do you see as a possible successor for Ibn? Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I don't think there's an obvious one just yet. I think if you look at the Sharks, you look at Corné Roll, and he might be one of them in a couple of years. I think JF van Heerden, that's just come through at the Bulls, might be more of your 5 lock, your Victor lock, but he's already been spoken about with by Rassie Erasmus, as he's already been name dropped by him, so we'll see him eventually. But I don't think there's a natural evident successor. I think we might get a bit of a different player in Murat. It's Salman Murat, because he's getting quite a bit of stick at the moment, but I think he does have the potential to be a proper world-class second row. But I think it is going to take a little bit of time and easing him into Test rugby. He's not going to be an outright blockbuster like Eben was. Well, he's not already, but Eben was ready for Test rugby at 20 years old. Not everyone's going to be ready for Test rugby at 20 years old.
No.
But with Eben, we had to calm him down, right? So he was a firebrand,
Yeah.
and he had too
Yeah.
much of that energy. Murat is actually exactly the opposite. Technically brilliant. Everything he does at set piece, perfect. Reminds me more like for Australian listeners and viewers, it'd be like John Eales, in that he's an athletic, got a big body, can handle that and all, but he's not trying to, murder someone. And,
very technically correct. Yeah.
And so that's why South African fans sometimes have a problem with him, is we want to see you, club someone.
Yeah, you want to punch him in the face so he gets a bit angry before the game.
So one of the big stories, of course, around South African rugby is how big and large a person Rassie has become, but it's changed. Talk to me about the change in Rassie from sort of, I don't know, a few years ago, and now how he's seen, and how many sort of pathways he's opened for players who were not looked at traditionally, the transformation story, but also how the people of South Africa now sort of just, they literally would follow him into the fires of hell.
Yeah.
Well, he's only doing 25-minute referee videos to start with.
I think Rassie was sort of a loose cannon earlier in his coaching career, and that video is probably one of his last little bit of loose cannonness, if I could put it like that. But he was always seen as a bit of a maverick, and I think a lot of people thought he would be a great Springbok coach, especially what he did with the Stormers and with the Cheetahs and that kind of thing. But I think that 2 years in Munster, or year in Munster, did wonders for him, because I think he always looked at the game differently than everyone else. But I think it took it up a couple of notches, taking on that role. But yeah, I think if we held the election tomorrow and Rassie's name was on the ballot, he would probably win it by a country mile. So yeah, and I think what's so great about him is his openness in his press conferences and that kind of thing. I speak to my colleagues in that, and Scott Robertson, I really love him as a coach, but if you sit through 20 minutes of his press conference, you can maybe get 2 stories out of what he's saying. And if Rassie Erasmus does a 15-minute press conference, you could probably get about 5 or 6 articles, and he goes in such depth, and he purposely does hide some things and reveals some things, but he's just so open with what's going on in the team and why he's made decisions. And I think the Chasing the Sun documentaries and that have really allowed people to understand what the Springboks are about and how he's driven them. And transformation has always been a bit of a swear word when it comes to South African sports, but he's turned the conversation on that, and he's saying we are tackling it head on. There's we have to hit these targets, and it's my fault if we don't, kind of thing. So
it's a really good point about Chasing the Sun. That has again, from someone very much on the outside looking in, that the way he was portrayed and the way he opened up in that series was you can't help but change your perception of him. And he goes from being the gun-shy social media producer to a guy who cares not only for his playing group, but for the impact that his playing group can have on the country. And that's enormous. That's a huge thing.
He's a big personality and very complicated, Brett. And what you think you know him, and then there's another level, another layer, as Jerry can point out very well. He's a mad genius. He'll infuriate you too as a fan. There's times when he'll just drive you crazy, and then you wake up the next day and you go, oh, I love that guy. It's a wild ride.
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. I think he gets a lot of like praise for like his rugby intelligence, but I think a lot of what he is actually his emotional intelligence. And when you hear players talk about it, they do talk about like him being brilliant and spotting things that nobody else can spot, but they do speak about the emotional side more and like how he gets them in the right space. And I think the way he gives guys responsibilities and like constantly change things. I mean, in the second chase in SANZAAR, he gives they all of a sudden Bongi Mbonambi is like a massive leader in the team. We hadn't seen that before. And then fast forward to this year, and then all of a sudden it's Peter Steph du Toit.
Yeah. Who sort of emerged as a bit of a leader in 2023.
Yeah. But who's doing all these tricks, Jared? I mean, there's people like catching balls the front of the line and then doing no-look backflips. There's nines throwing into lineouts. Well, what's behind this? Is this a Tony issue or is this someone else?
I think Rassie has a new partner in crime. I think Jacques sort of leveled Rassie a little bit and brought him, like, made him a bit calmer. And I think now Tony's like instigating things like, yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
What do you reckon about doing this? Yeah, that's a good shot.
I mean, lineouts are such an adventure now. You never know where the ball's going after the catch.
But I can't remember when I heard it, but one of the ex-internationals was talking about it, and they were saying, no, it's so great to see players given the opportunity to do that on the field, because it sort of makes you excited, like, to go into work every day. Because at the end of the day, it's a privilege to represent your country, but it's still a job. And so if they make it exciting as your job to go in and do that kind of thing, like you're gonna want to perform, and you're gonna want to follow the coaches and that kind of thing, because they're making it interesting and they're making it fun.
So of all the newfangled tricks of 2024, what's your favorite? Because my favorite is the catch at the back of the lineup and Jason Dixon throwing it back to the front with a fully folded maul. That's my favorite. What's yours?
I think that's the winner, and because it worked as well. And
followed closely by doing it again 10 minutes later in the same game.
So I think that's the best one. But I would have loved if that no look one worked, because I think there was another peel coming around from that. So I think that first pod was going to come around and peel, and Argentina was like, no, we've had enough of that.
Yeah, we're just taking everyone out.
Taking you out in the
air. Kill on. Yeah. That's a good break point there. That's really good. Really good. Guys, did the Rugby Championship finish the way we thought it would for 2024? The final table in the end, I think, is pretty right. South Africa 24, New Zealand 16, Argentina 14, Australia 5. Before we answer that, do one of you two need to feed a dog?
Yeah. So sorry about that, Mom. I'm like I told you earlier, I'm actually visiting South Africa, and my parents have just got a rescue dog, and he loves his voice. He's found his new voice.
What kind of dog is it?
They reckon it's a Labrador cross terrier, but
nice.
Yeah,
I love that.
Not quite sure how that one works, but
I love that you've had to start that answer with "they reckon it's." That's always a good sign.
No, but I think the log's a bit deceiving, Brett. I think going into round 6, there was only 2 teams that had a chance. I mean, obviously, it was mathematical for Argentina. No one thought they did, but it didn't feel like New Zealand had made themselves a clear second. So I think before the championship, yes, I had it. South Africa, New Zealand, Argentina, Australia. But the way that actually came about was a little bit strange, and I thought New Zealand would have been the least happy of the teams on the table.
Yeah, and that's probably a good subplot. Yeah, like do Argentina see that third place finish as a real missed opportunity? Because I think they have to.
Yeah, I think the game that you have to look back to is the first game against Australia.
Yes.
Where they pretty much stuffed it right at the end. And I think there will be some anger, especially with that last penalty, with the timing of that last penalty. And if there was time for a restart, and yes, you do get a restart, but you still need to win a penalty or to score a try or whatever. But I think that they'll be quite upset that they didn't finish in second place, because they could have quite easily have won this competition. A better performance against New Zealand in the second test, getting over the line in that tight test against Australia, because you saw in the second match that they clearly had the number of the Wallabies, and they just didn't make it count in the first test.
Yeah, I think that's the closest change, like in a sliding doors. If you say, so they win that very tight match against Australia, and suddenly that final round is much different. Then you're playing probably a much tighter test.
Then you would have got away with saying there's two teams going to this last round who could win. Then that would have carried a bit more weight. Do you think it kind of also illustrated Argentina's want, though? On their day, they are as good as anyone, but they have still got big losses in them.
Yeah. Well, they got to get props, man. They've got to fix their scrum. I mean, no scrum, no win. And it's interesting, though, because if you kind of just did a big, broad picture of Argentina in rugby for 100 years, you'd say, talk to me about Argentina. You'd say, the World Cup semifinals. You'd say, scrum. Harder. So how did a culture that produces, I always do this walk around test. You walk around a place and do you see what is the average looking body style? And if you're walking around in Pretoria, you go, oh yeah, there's props here. Like the props in Woolworths. When you, and the same thing as Argentina. If you've ever been to Argentina and you actually go up into Mendoza area and Salta, there's a lot of big fellows. So I don't know why the 139 kilogram Argentina guy is so weak. I mean, body strength to weight ratio, it's terrible. I mean, Ox crumpled him. And it's something cultural. There's something not happening. I was told by an Argentinian guy that they're not scrumming at all in schools.
Yeah, I heard something similar.
Yeah, they're not actually embracing the scrum until someone's 16 years old.
Yeah, there's a lot of that developmental thing that comes back to bite you later in your career. Like, you have those freaks that can play back row their entire youth and move into the front row at professional level, but you do need that constant rise to be able to get a good quality and depth. And I think there's also been quite a few law changes that have Argentina used to scrum in that spearhead, Harry. Yeah, and that's sort of, it hasn't outright been outlawed, but it's pretty difficult to get it right.
So without the breakfoot's almost designed to defeat La Bajada.
Yeah, exactly that. So exactly.
By that, Jared, you mean the hooker actually being almost half a body length in front, don't you?
Yeah,
it's
the whole focal point, and everyone. And your right lock will push with his left shoulder, and your props scrum inwards, and it's almost impossible to get right nowadays.
It's creating a fulcrum almost where you shear, and so you just take a guy like Matt Fessler. What you're trying to do is pick the exact shoulder blade, and you're shearing it off. And that would, that's sort of the schooling method. Man, referees get inside that tunnel nowadays before the scrum even convenes. You'll see them get inside there, and they actually no, we're not going to do this.
They're actually, you can see it. They're telling the two hookers to pack there on my chest.
Yes.
And then I will step back for the props to come in. Yeah, you do see that.
You're talking about pictures, and then the other referees are telling them the picture they want to see.
Yeah.
And so Frans Malherbe says he likes that. He's like, thank you. Just tell me what you want to see and I'll give it to you. Whereas Argentina, and this could get back to the language barrier, sometimes it looks like they're mystified about what's going on out there. But all I know is they're one extra front row away from being a very troublesome team to play.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, I think they also lost Bello quite early in the competition. Like he was really one of their best scrummagers, and he got sidelined
last year.
From there, it's a bit of tickets.
Yeah. Talk to me about the tournament then. Is it because it sort of feels like the Rugby Championships at a bit of a crossroads now, with New Zealand and South Africa in confirming their intent to tour each other. What's the Rugby Championship in 2026 going to look like now?
It's going to be single round. No, it's not happening in that year. Is that right?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, it's not happening. So I think the best outcome is that Argentina and Australia pretty much tour each other in those years that happens, and you sort of build a rivalry out of that. And I think there's a lot to work with in that sense.
Is this the opportunity to bring? Is this the opportunity to bring Japan and Fiji into some meaningful competition?
Yeah.
I've literally just thought of that.
I don't think that's a bad shot because when was it that South Africa had a quad series, one of the British and Irish Lions series, and I think they brought Samoa, Scotland, and somebody else into the mix.
And Italy.
And I think they could pretty much do.
Yeah.
It was something like that. It was something like that. And I think that can be done in those years as well. Australia can get Fiji, Japan, and throw in Samoa's always like the ugly stepchild of the Pacific nations. Like they do great, but they don't get quite the plaudits that Fiji do. So yeah, I think there's definitely a scope for those kind of competitions, and hosting it in Australia where there are great stadiums, or even hosting it in Argentina to grow the numbers that side. Like I think it's a great opportunity, and one that probably should be explored by Rugby Australia.
Yeah, well, and explored by SANZAAR, Harry. Like SANZAAR themselves would need to make sure they're still producing decent tournaments and decent contents in these tour years. So if they're still serious about Japan and Fiji, and we keep being told they are, despite not seeing a lot of evidence to show that, that would seem to be the obvious opportunity, would it not?
There'll be a lot more plot twists and new characters in this, but it just feels like we're all in uni and there's like a big pack of friends. They're really, really great friends, but then two people reveal we've been shagging for a while, and it just makes the whole friendship story different for everyone. I don't know how Australia can cope with New Zealand as a friend. They're a weird friend, man. They're like the weirdest friend. You guys are joined at the hip, and then they always just go, we want to play with the Springboks more. It kind of costs a pull over the Rugby Championship. I've always thought it's because the name itself, the Rugby Championship. I always liked it more as Tri-Nations. And, I guess we should have gone to like
Quad Nations would sound ridiculous.
That's true. Okay. Well, so anyway, I still think the idea of keeping it like...
Here's an idea. I don't think this has ever been done before. You could call it the Four Nations.
Ooh. Oh yeah, that's what the home nations used to call themselves.
That's the joke.
And then we just keep doing it. Like we go 4, then 5, then 6, and at some point we're the 6 nations at the same time. That'd be funny.
6 Nations North and 6 Nations South.
Our 6 Nations is better than your 6 Nations.
Oh, good. Jared, it's been great, mate, to catch up again. It's always good to hear your thoughts and get your perspectives, and it's been a really enjoyable tournament, I think, from wherever you sit. I think everyone's teams have their own plots and twists and subplots and all that, and obviously South Africa laid out a pretty good framework this year.
Yeah, I think so. I think you guys asked the question earlier, is it the best rugby championship that we've ever had? South Africa won it, so maybe. Competitiveness was, I think it was. Like it was close matches between the Springboks and the All Blacks. Australia really put up a good fight against the All Blacks and beat Argentina. There was that terrible result in Argentina as well. But I think on the whole, it's possibly the most entertaining and most competitive rugby championship, that's a full rugby championship that we've had. So, I think it was a great tournament. Just too bad their social media pages are horrendous in making most of it.
That's another chat for another day, definitely.
Hey, but I'm worried about the dog. The dog's gone strangely silent, so you better check on that dog.
Go and check on that Labrador Terrier thing, mate.
Listen, man, I love you, brother. We'll see you soon. Hopefully, I'll see you in London sometime soon, or in Joburg, or wherever you are.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. Much love.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
This is the 8-9 Combo Rugby Podcast with Brett McKay and Harry Jones. And, mate, we've been blessed with the perfect timing again, having Jared back this week.
I love Jared. Jared lives breathes, eats rugby. It's interesting
He
how many. I
does.
don't know. Like he's got to be the highest meme per second contributor on rugby Twitter. It's unbelievable.
He must have a team of meme monkeys or something like that working in the background.
Oh, I've been around I've seen his group of paparazzi. His group of paparazzi rivals my group of paparazzi. I don't know why I'm speaking Italian this episode, but your logo it just feels like a logo from the 1955 sort of like La Bella Vita,
Our logo.
Filmmakers.
The 8-9 combo logo.
8-9 long. Yeah. But anyway, Jared.
We've had that all year, right?
No, but when it comes on in that little thing it does now, the interregnum, because it flashes.
We're doing that
triggered.
for YouTubers. We're YouTubers now.
Figurati. And Jared's got like a big pack. He's got acolytes. We were walking from a stadium to a pub, and there were just like throngs following us. Actually, they might not have been following us, but
following you or stalking you. Yeah.
he's good fun, man. And what I like about him also is that he's really objective. Like when it comes time to write an article, you don't have to worry about him being one-eyed. He really is trying to do his best.
Tells it as it is. Yeah,
Yep.
No doubt about that. A quick whip around the grounds, mate. Obviously, Rugby Championship round 6 wrapped up on the weekend. We've talked about South Africa and Argentina. New Zealand obviously beat Australia 33-13 as well. Go back and check out our test match post-mortem from Saturday night to hear
we said all we want to say on that.
After the game. Yeah, I think everything that was said needed to be said, and I don't really think there's anything further to add on that. It was round 2 of the ERC, and the thing I've got written down here is that a certain Italian team, speaking of, Zebre, knocked over Munster.
Yeah, there were some curious results.
42-33.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people bragging about their picks and their tips and all that, but nobody had that one.
No one's picked that. Yeah. I mean, look, Glasgow are on a roll. The Lions are sort of showing a bit of early season form, but Zebre beating Munster I did not have on my dance card this week.
No. And I'm just not sure that, I know the Currie Cup didn't really happen this year. It was fictitious. I'm not even sure the ERC's happening now. Something's got to change. I think we need a new coach. I'm sorry. I love you, Dobbo, but we need a coach. We need some new ideas.
Stormers got towed up again. It was round 2 of the Premiership in England as well, and there was just the 85 points scored between Bristol and Gloucester. 41-44. That's defence optional game, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the whole Premiership had very, very high scores.
Yeah, Bath 20 beat Leicester 15. Actually, that's the first time I've seen that score. I'll have to go back and check the replay.
That was the only proper game where people did tackle and have defense. The rest of the Premiership was just like, hey, it's early season. Let's all just get a run.
Let's just get into it. Round 4 of the top 14 in France. Pau knocked over Stade Francais. Bordeaux knocked over Toulouse 16-12. La Rochelle 17 beat Racing 16. So it's tight, and it's a bit how you going in France already. And then on the weekend in New Zealand, I think the big result there is North Harbour 65 thumping Canterbury. And
Tane.
Man.
Break he had, Tane Edmed on the break, and just
from he's only 22.
Yeah, he looked strong.
It's his highlight reel out of the NPC. Tane Edmed we're talking about, obviously. His highlight reel out of the NPC is becoming comical now. It's becoming a meme of itself.
If I did a jeer right now, a retrospective jeer, I would say I'm jeering all the Aussie fans that say things like, "Well, it's the NPC." Like, okay. Someone playing 400 minutes of NPC is better than someone playing Ben Donaldson minutes for wherever. Are you claiming that all the Western Forces matches are that far superior to the best NPC teams? That's still Sean Stevenson running out there. He's still playing against All Blacks. Come on.
And that Canterbury side is not is not mugs.
It's not
There's
shabby.
Plenty of blokes who've played a lot of Super Rugby in that Canterbury team. So yeah.
And what I like about it is the team, when you can see when people score what the result is, and when Tane scores, and he scores a lot, I mean, his whole team can
Everyone's
come
getting
over
around
and
him.
mobbing him.
Yeah.
He's liked, and I think it's important to have people like that. I mean, I'm not talking
I
about
think-
him starting tomorrow at the Wallabies, but he's a good squad man. Stick him in there, Joe. Let him tour. Let him go there and tour and play some rugby against some Scots.
I think they're in on the meme. I think they're in on it. They're in on the joke. We'll be back with one last games of the week for the Rugby Championship later in the week as we once again consider what have we learned. And the Test match post-mortem will be back come the November Test, the Spring Tour, the Autumn Nation Series, or whatever we're calling it now. So make sure you are all subscribed and following as you need to, and you will not miss a minute. Any big headlines the last week?
The Springboks have taken the aura of the All Blacks. We now have the aura. Cheers.
That wasn't a headline. That was just something that you
objective
about.
news.
Do you then have a final thought for the week?
I like aura. I've always thought aura was good, and I want to create some aura. That's it. That's my thought for the week. Swing thought. Swing.
I did not pick episode 34 as the moment we'd go tangential every now and again. But here we are. We'll then call that episode 34 of the 8-9 Combo done. Do go and check the show notes for the links to the 8-9 Combo on Twitter and on YouTube as well, where you can find video versions of the podcast every week. And leave us a comment over there. We love seeing some of the comments coming through, and we're getting back to them to answer as much as we can. So leave us a comment. We absolutely do see it. Leave us a rating or review wherever you can. And whichever pod platform you are on, make sure you jump into your settings and set your auto download to on as well. Harry and I remain on the socials in our usual places, at Harry Bordy Jones and at BMC Sport. And you'll find links on our socials and in the show notes as well to Harry's written stuff on the Raw, including his team of the Rugby Championship and my weekly Australian column on RugbyPass as well. Don't forget to head to RugbyPass.tv, where you can now watch both series of Chasing the Sun, the documentary series celebrating South Africa's back-to-back Rugby World Cup wins in Japan and France. And we are just so pleased that everyone can now go and see Chasing the Sun too. It's a brilliant series, so make sure you sign up for free and watch it wherever you are in the rugby world. This is the 8-9 Combo, the short side set piece combination you didn't realise you needed, coming from the podcast double act you already had. I'm Brett McKay. He's Harry Jones, and we'll be back in your ears in just a few days with another What Have We Learned edition of Games of the Week.
Come, but play with us. Cheers. Espresso.